This week on the podcast, we are going to talk about the game of life. How do we think about approaching and executing on the things that we want to deliver on in the context of a game? And why in a game? Because when we're playing games, ideally, we're having fun. The cool thing about a game is we know that there are going to be winners, there are going to be losers. There are going to be rules. There are going to be areas where you can kind of push the boundaries of those rules. You can push yourself, and ultimately, ideally, you walk out of it learning more than what you started with. So I'm going to tie together all of the pieces that we've gone through so far this week, talking about it in the context of building toward your next. So how do we build toward your next? Well, the first thing I would suggest that we start with is our North Star. Let's figure out what that thing is that we want to build toward. And that's going to be hard for a lot of folks. Here's the cool thing. Your North Star can change over time. Now, I know the North Star doesn't necessarily change physically. It helps us with navigation, but your North Star can change over time. And it's okay. So let's figure out where and when and what that North Star is today. What do you want to do? Why do you want to do it? Who do you want to do it with? What do you want to accomplish? What do you want people to remember you for? What do you want people to think about when they think about you? So identify what that North Star is, that objective, that primary thing that you're working toward for yourself. Now, if you're doing this inside a business, when you start your business, you probably have this idea of what you want to accomplish. And we're still working through the language for Catalyst. And we've been working through this language for a little bit over 8 years since originally launching the business with Mike as Catalyst Sale. And now where we are as Catalyst Acts. Catalyst Acts advising, coaching, training, and speaking. Nothing happens without action. Begin with the end in mind. We start with speaking, and that's where I want to promote the primary part of the revenue to come from is from the speaking side of things. And we're working on that. So the original tagline for the business, and this is still it from a sales perspective, is sales is a thinking process. Now we've evolved that over the years. We say business is a thinking process. Life is a thinking process. How are you thinking differently about your process? And that's typically how we sign off the podcast. So let's talk about that North Star. And this is a relatively new framework, and you can watch the videos where we release this week if you're interested in going back to that. That North Star, once we understand where we want to go, that thing that we want to accomplish, and mine is help the people around me do the things they want to do better and faster. I do that in the context of people and process. More specifically, when we're talking about the Phoenix Club or we're talking about Catalyst Acts, it's about helping preneurs do the things they want to do better and faster. So a simpler version of that is enabling and empowering preneurs. That solopreneur, person who wants to think different and do different inside their own business but never hire people. An intrapreneur, someone who wants to do that inside somebody else's business. An entrepreneur, someone who wants to do that for their own business. They want to hire people. Maybe they want to sell it at some point. Or a wantrepreneur, someone who doesn't really know where to start. So those are the people that we help. We want to enable and empower them. Well, how do we do it? So the first piece in that STAR model is strategy. What is our strategy? What are the specific areas that we're going to put time, energy, and attention to be in a position to help people be successful? Our strategy includes doing things from a speaking perspective, so building the speaking side of the business. Strategy includes delivering on-demand courses, some of those ones that you can access in Kajabi. Our strategy includes some type of demand generation. And in the short term, that's where we're putting a lot of our attention is on demand generation, ideally so that shifts into customer acquisition. And if we're able to do what we think we can do, we will retain and expand those customers. So strategy. That's ultimately the Dare to Grow model would be a view of strategy. We'll talk about it a little bit, the game plan around it. The next thing we want to do is tactics. So what's the specific work that we're going to do? Tactically, how are we going to go through and do that? So tactically, we do things like create a podcast, make a Calendly link available for you to schedule a clarity call. So tactically doing it, the way that we do it, this gets into methods. The way that we do it is by engaging directly with others, either in a one-on-one session or a one-to-many session, depending on the actual context. And sometimes that's in a B2B environment. We're working directly with businesses, and then the individuals inside those businesses, or in other areas, individuals work with us directly. So tactically, we work one-on-one with people. We do that in the context of meetings. We do that in the context of application of tools. We do that in the context of outreach, where we're reaching out to people. So what are our tactics? Third piece is our action. Did we actually do the work? So we laid out the strategy, we laid out the tactics, but nothing matters. None of that matters if we don't actually take action. Did we actually do the work? Did we work through the checklist that we created? What action will we take? What movement will we create so we move forward? And then the last part in this STAR model, strategy, tactics, action. The fourth piece is reflection. So where do we create the time, energy, and space for us to reflect back and say, is the work actually working? Is the work getting us closer to the goal, closer to the objective, closer to that North Star? When I rolled out the model earlier this week, I highlighted that I think some people overcomplicate strategy. And one of the ways that you can help to simplify strategy is limit yourself to a three-pronged approach. So 3 distinct strategies, then 3 distinct tactics nestled in or nested under that strategy, and then hold yourself accountable to the action, actually go and do the work, and then reflect on the work and see if the work actually works. So once we've identified our star, our North Star, we start working that model, then we move into the traditional game plan. And we launched this originally as the get shit done model back in 2018. And then in 2019, we decided to call it the reset. And then 2020 happened and a bunch of other people called something else the reset. And ultimately, we needed to rebrand it, and Jody helped us rebrand it. He said, you know what? What's interesting about it is you talk about goals, you talk about actions, you talk about metrics, and you talk about execution. Why not just call it the game plan? So that is how the game plan was rebranded. Goals and actions, metrics lead to execution. And if those are all organized properly, you will improve the likelihood of execution by creating focus through lines of clarity. And those lines of clarity come from the actions that you define, the metrics that you hold yourself accountable to. Metrics being the tactical work, actions being the strategy. So you can see how important strategy and tactics are. And I think some people confuse strategy and tactics. Strategy, from my perspective, is how. How will we do it? Not what will we do. There's a distinct difference. Strategy, how we will do it. And when you think about strategy, you think how you're going to do something. And the one that I like to use is the fitness one, because I think it's simple and I think everybody can relate to it. I know I can relate to it. If I want to get in shape, if I want to lose weight, if I want to feel good in my body, my 3-pronged strategy is to recover, sleep, move things, get a workout going, get a sweat going, and fuel. And if I design my tactics and hold myself accountable to doing the work associated with recovery, sleep, fuel, that nutrition piece, and movement, then I can build a program that'll be successful for me, or at a minimum, start to identify what of those tactics are not really good for me. Do they not work for me? Like maybe time restricted feeding is not a good thing for me. Anyhow, by laying that game plan out, goal setting and execution through clarity and focus, you create a high level of clarity around how you're going to do something, and then what you're going to do, and then use checklists to hold yourself accountable. If you want to go deep into the game plan, go to findmycatalyst.com. We've got a lot of information around the game plan. We've got a notebook, we've got courses. I'll do game plan coaching. You can go pretty deep in there. So the first thing, we want that North Star, strategy, tactics, action, reflection. Then we get into our game plan. We build our game plan, goals, actions, strategy, metrics, the work, execution, that 30, 60, 90. And then the last piece, and this is the one that gets really, really tough, because sometimes you do all of those things and you think you did a really good job. You built out the strategy. You know what your tactics are. You understand what your goal is. You've got everybody aligned. Everybody's working toward the same thing, you think. But unfortunately, you're not making any progress. You're not making any progress. You're not actually moving toward the thing that you said you were going to move toward. So this is where you can quickly go in and start to assess something like your game face. This is that quick assessment that we can go back in and do if, for whatever reason, we're not moving forward toward, we're not making the kind of progress that we want to make relative to the goal that we established. The F here is focus. It's execution through focus, accountability, clarity, and effort. Focus, accountability, clarity, and effort. And each of these 4 letters in the acronym, 4 words in the acronym, we're going to give ourselves a score of 1 to 5. We're going to self-assess. This is the reflection piece, right? So we're going to self-assess. Are we able to maintain focus? Yes or no? Score 1 to 5. 1, no focus. 5, absolutely dialed in on focus. When we see a squirrel, do we chase it or do we stay on the task at hand? The next piece is accountability. We talked about this a little bit earlier. Did we do the work? Give ourselves a score of 1 to 5. Did we get the work done? I have a checklist that I use in the gym. My goal is that in any week, I'm at least at 80% on that checklist. And I share that publicly on Twitter. And typically I'm in about 85 range. There's some days I miss and some days where I hit everything. Did I go in there and do the work? Did I hold myself accountable to getting the work done? And then the second side of that, another 1 to 5 scale, is did the work actually work? Is the work working? Hold the work accountable to working. If I did the work and we're not making any progress and the work is not working, and I might need to fire the work. If I didn't do the work, then I have no idea whether or not the work is working. Then we move into clarity. Are we clear on, do we have a high level of clarity around the things that we said we're going to do and what that stuff means? And does this work across not only ourselves, but our team and our family? Do we have a high level of clarity? Give ourselves a 1 to 5. If we're ambiguous, if people define things a little bit differently, then we might be a 1 on that scale and we need to work ourselves up to a 2 or a 3. The last piece is effort. When we went in there and did the work, did we go all in? Did we deliver everything? Did we put everything out there? Did we do our best? If we didn't, what are we doing? So if I lay out my North Star, take all those pieces, and I have the game plan built out, and I'm not making the progress that I need to, then I can test against and assess against that game face. And if you do all 3 of those things at the right time, in the right order, with the right people, I can just about guarantee to you that you will make progress on whatever it is that you're working on making progress toward. Or you might end up finding out that you're not really built for that thing that you're working toward. And that's okay. That's okay too. So at that point in time, you might need to go through some kind of decision-making process and decide to eliminate something or decide that that's not the thing for you. These 3 components help to simplify achieving results. I know it's a lot, and we add complexity by adding things to it. But if you take the components and break it down into the smaller parts, you can actually see how simple the model is. And the cool thing about the simple version of the model is that when you start measuring these things at this level, then you can manage those things. And when you can manage those things, you can make progress. And when you start to make progress, you'll build confidence. And when you start to build confidence, you'd be amazed at what you can accomplish. You'd be amazed at what you can accomplish. With the right mindset, with the right skill set, and the right tool set, you can move the world. And this is where you can make an amazing impact. And that's how I hope that we will continue to enable and empower preneurs out there in the marketplace, both through the goal setting and execution piece, this simplifying goal setting and execution, the simplifying problem solving and decision making, the simplifying go to market, the simplifying communication. And when you give people these tools and resources, you will improve leadership, you will improve culture, you will improve your ability to make money, revenue, and you will improve execution. I hope you enjoyed this. We're going to get into some of the questions starting next week. We're going to get into one of my favorite ones, and one that's out there right now, which is, hey, I'm midway through the year. I'm behind on my number. How can I set myself up for success in the next 6 months to hit my number this year, hit those revenue goals that I've got for this year, and put myself in the best position to be successful as we move into next year? If you know somebody who would enjoy this conversation, enjoy this podcast, please share it with them. If you know somebody who is looking to be enabled and empowered as an entrepreneur, they're looking for their tribe, their community, their club, recommend the Phoenix Club for me, please. Sales is a thinking process. Business is a thinking process. Life is a thinking process. How are you thinking differently about your process? Thank you.